Now we come to the portion of the service before we do our Bible study and news. We do an end times news and prophecy update as we do each week. This is prophecy update number 49. We've been doing this for 1 year to the day almost. And it's been exciting to see the response, and we want to welcome our online audience as well and subscribers all around the world. And thank you for joining us and partnering with us. A couple interesting items that have been developing concerning, again, the things going on, especially in the Middle East, and the nuke deal that's going to be happening this week. But we see how Obama has already authorized 13 tons of gold that's been released as sanctions are still holding up. But basically, he's rewarding this terrorist-supporting rogue nation. You know, here's some more money to help you build your nuke deal. The gold was transferred to Iran from the government of South Africa, which has been holding onto assets due to harsh sanctions, which is meant to put some pressure on Tehran to rein its rogue nuclear program. The gold appears to have been released as a part of the sanction relief package that will be rewarded and award Iran with nearly $12 billion of unfrozen cash assets, especially as this week kind of wraps up. But they've already received $4.2 billion of unfrozen assets under the 2013 interim agreement between the United States, and then given another $2.8 billion last year in a bid to keep the Tehran committed to the nuke talks. So let's just reward you, and they're going to get whatever they want through this particular deal. The State Department calculates that Iran will receive a total of $11.9 billion in cash assets. Wow. The Iranian president hinted that Iran will decide to fully pursue its nuke program in a way that's harsher than what the United States had ever imagined. And so if Western powers fail to uphold any nuclear agreement, expected to be finalized in the coming days. And so again, his comments, again, they haven't finished the deal, but we're on the cusp of it. Again, they've extended to July 9th. They could be going to the deadline there. They could be finishing it before then. But also this coming week, which is also interesting, the Russian president and the Iran president are having another secret meeting. They've already been meeting throughout the past several years as well. But it's interesting, the development with Russia's partnership with Iran. And this could also be the development of the partnership that would take place for the Ezekiel 38-39 war. Again, Gog and Magog coming together, just saying that this is the development, not saying it's happening. So it's just the components are all coming together. The pieces, as we said, are coming together. Another issue in the region with Egypt and ISIS coming into Egypt, and how Egypt has asked Israel Defense Force to come in to help take care of ISIS, especially in the Gaza area. So the Egyptian sources revealed that after launching a brutal attack in Sinai, the Islamic State, ISIS terror group, approaches Gaza. And so they've invited the president of Egypt, invited the Israel Defense Force to help strike against it, since Gaza kind of falls under Israel's responsibility. The two armies have already been coordinating in preparation for such a possibility. And the Egyptian problem is that the military campaign inside Gaza would lead to a breakdown in the defenses and a mass fight of civilians in Gaza to Sinai. So we're starting to see implosion and things coordinating there. So a massive coordinating strings of attacks have already transpired, where there's over 50 Egyptian soldiers that are dead. I always struggle with that word, soldier and shoulder. It rhymes, doesn't it? Anyways, but here's what you're starting to see component with what's happening there. In your Bibles, Isaiah chapter 19 talks about this that's transpiring. And it's a good setup for the fulfillment of what's taken place. And here's some questions to consider as you read through that chapter. And if you answer yes to all these things, you're starting to see how this is going to be fulfilled. Are things deteriorating swiftly in Egypt? The answer is yes. Is there a civil strife that is growing in revolution? Yes. Are there religious reasons behind this revolution? Yes. Are there geopolitical conditions ripe for a dictator to rise to power? Yes. Is Egypt's economy in dire straits? Yes. Is Egypt's future uncertain and the Islamic clerics dumbfounded? Yes. The Egyptians are staggering about like in a drunken stupor, as verse 14 talks about. The unemployment rate on the rise as the result of the turmoil? Yes. Are there Egyptians fearful of what the future holds? Of course, yes. And is Egypt terrified of Israel and what they have already treated together? And that's kind of what we're starting to see, yes. And so there is a high degree and likelihood that Isaiah chapter 19 is starting to be fulfilled before our very eyes. And there would be a potential highway going from Egypt all the way up through Syria through this particular transaction as well. So if the Egyptian crisis morphs into kind of a revolution that has been going on in Syria since the Arab Spring of 2011, then it would become almost certain that Isaiah 19 is finding a fulfillment of biblical prophecy. So that's the exciting thing that we're seeing before our very eyes. Another crisis, as we mentioned, what's going to happen, in fact, today and tomorrow, we're going to see how this really transpires of what's happening in Greece. They say that the banks are running out of money by Monday. And they're running out of essential food and medicine within days. The banks are down to the last 50 million euros. So it's sliding down to a national crisis. And again, there's going to be an implosion. There's going to be a state of emergency that's going to happen. And this is not only going to affect Europe, but it's going to affect the other parts of the world with the economy, the stock markets, and all those sort of things. So we'll see how this also plays out this week and the weeks to come, and how it really plays out and affects the economies and the stock markets globally. So it's interesting to see that. And speaking of finances, maybe you saw how China has now ratified the creation of BRICS Bank. So the Chinese parliament had ratified a creation of BRICS Development Bank. It's a new development bank that they're doing that was conceived to counterbalance such Western world-led or Western-led financial institutions as the World Bank. And what BRIC stands for is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So they're combining together, and they all have to put in over $50 billion worth, eventually get up to $100 billion, and it's really doesn't matter what their GDP size is. Everyone's coming together. They all have equal say-so. But it's interesting how they're developing this cohesive bank system and also eventually a currency that will transpire. So whether this becomes the one world currency or not, but you're starting to see all these pieces coming together. So it's just kind of another development of a new world currency. Now on to a kind of a moral issue. On the backs of the decision that happened last year with the Supreme Court of the United States, there was a secret memo by the Department of Justice to legalize 12 new perversions, including bestiality and pedophilia. Former U.S. House Majority Leader Tom DeLay claims that the justice has drafted what spells this dozen perversions that wants to legalize things like bestiality, zoophilia, sex with animals, pedophilia, sex with children, and polygamy, which, by the way, maybe you saw Nathan Collier, who lives in Billings, Montana. He applied for a license on Tuesday for his polygamous relationship with his 2 wives. He says, "We've been together for years, and I want to give my wife the legitimacy that she deserves." So the Supreme Court's decision made marriage legal between the same-sex couples. And here's part of the dissent that Chief Justice John Roberts said, that the legal argument to justify same-sex marriage could be used by polygamist couples as well. So that's why he ended up doing it. And that's what inspired him. But Tom DeLay goes on. He was on a news TV, Newsmax interview, as he was telling the host that just as he predicted, all hell is breaking loose because of the Supreme Court decision, as we mentioned before. If they open this gate, who knows what else is going to happen. So he says things are so out of control within the secret memo, but also within this memo, listen, He says not only do they have the list of those perversions, but they're also having a list of strategies to go after churches and pastors and businesses to try to assert their religious liberty. And you're already starting to see it. More of those bakeries that are trying to, where the homosexuals are trying to, hey, bake us a cake for our homosexual life. They say no, so they're getting sued. More and more of those are happening. So they're coming down with more of these perversions. The LGBT is the only beginning part of this deal, and it's going to expand to all kinds of other perversions. We mentioned before with some of the other churches, denominations going down this direction, but the Episcopalian voted on Wednesday to affirm and to embrace gay rights, changing their church laws to allow same-sex religious marriages throughout the denomination. So now they've embraced it. And as you know, 12 years ago, they had a blazing trail electing the first openly gay bishop, Gene Robinson, who ended up divorcing his partner last year. And you're also going to see, if studies have shown throughout the other nations that have adopted same-sex marriages, they will have a much higher divorce rate than the heterosexual couples. Just food for thought there. But this new law, again, it's just a gender-specific language, how they changed it. Instead of husband and wife, the new church law will refer to as the couple. And of course, clergy members are still open to decline to perform ceremonies, but again, it's so openly within this denomination. We also mentioned several weeks ago about the Fairfax County school system in Virginia. But now they have introduced and are including gender identity curriculum for their classes, despite the objections of the parents. So it doesn't matter what you say as a parent, they're going to do whatever they want. So the district's family life education lessons include teaching heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, transgender identity. And the move has, of course, angered parents over what they are forcing to expose to their children to the issues that are not even a part of state requirements. Starting in kindergarten, prep, that's where they're starting with this curriculum. So the students are taught about same-sex or gay marriage. Parents are outraged. Now, that's the first thing that you'll read on that list, but there's also a letter that the school system put out there as well, and they said that, well, parents can opt out. Yes, they can opt out, but they're still going to be rammed to stuff in that school environment. So even if you opt your kids out of that classroom, they're still going to be facing that sort of information. So it's just the issues are going to get worse and worse within the school systems. And then lastly, maybe some of you saw a couple nights ago about the star, Bethlehem star. Jupiter and Venus appeared, in the sky. And here's where the stargazers treated a rare and beautiful, planetary alignment. How this is all coming together, which is kind of interesting. But the conjunction of the Venus and Jupiter appearing less than 33 degrees apart from one another in the skies, they called it the Star of Bethlehem. And so referring to the likely connection that the bright celestial occurrence occurred around the same time that Jesus' birth occurred as well. So despite the fact that neither planet is a star, right, Venus and Jupiter appear brighter than any other star in the night at that time. And so, again, could this be a significance of what's happening in our time and age right now, fulfilling biblical prophecy? Many believe it's particularly considering the timing of it. As you know, the conflict riddled going through Russia, Iran, Syria, Greece, Israel, the Supreme Court decisions, all these other implosions of what's happening globally. You have the four blood moons. You have all these things are coming to see that this is a prophetic sign of Christ's imminent return. In fact, there's a rabbi that came out the other day just saying, hey, prophecy saying that Christ is coming. But yet, from a Jewish perspective, they're thinking it's the first coming, and we know it's the second coming. So, but it's interesting how all this is lining up. It could be the same herald of Christ's birth. It could be him coming back. And again, Luke 21:11 talks about the great signs in the heavens And this could be one of those signs. Just a thought, not saying that it is, but just, hey, all these things are coming together. You got to put them into consideration. And things to watch for. Again, interesting week that lies ahead with the Iran nuke deal, what's going to happen with Greece, and also what's going to happen with Egypt. So pay attention. Amen. And that concludes today's update.